Some wounds don't bleed. They just stay open, quietly, for years. You smile around them, you build a life anyway, but every now and then, someone brushes against the raw edge and reminds you, it never really healed. That's how it's been with my in-laws. 12 years married to their daughter. 12 years invisible to them. It started with love. Doesn't it always? Her name was Priya. She was sharp, warm, a little guarded at first, until she wasn't. We met in grad school. I was the guy with the bad haircut and good intentions. She was the girl with the careful eyes and a laugh that broke through her defenses when she thought no one was listening. It took me 3 months to work up the courage to ask her out. Took her 3 dates to admit she liked me. The differences between us were always there, cultural, religious, all that. She grew up in a tightly knit Indian family, the kind where every holiday included 30 cousins and your parents knew where you were every hour of the day. Me? Midwest Catholic. Polish-German roots. My family hugged too much and overshared at Thanksgiving. But love makes space. At least, we did. The first time I met her parents, I thought it went fine. Formal, but polite. Her mother offered tea. Her father asked about my job. I tried to be respectful, used the titles Priya taught me, nodded at the right moments, avoided the big cultural landmines. We left that evening with what I thought was a neutral success. Turns out, I had no idea. 3 weeks later, Priya called me in tears. Her parents had forbidden her from seeing me. Told her it was disrespectful, that she was dishonoring the family, the culture, the community. Her mother cried for days. Her father didn't speak to her for a week. They didn't care that I respected their traditions. They cared that I wasn't from them. Still, Priya stood firm. We didn't elope, but we might as well have. Small ceremony, a few close friends, my family, her one cousin who dared to show up. The rest of her family never came. Never sent a gift. Never called. We thought time would fix it. That eventually they'd soften. That was 12 years ago. In 12 years, they've never stepped foot in our home. Never met our son, Liam. Never said congratulations when Priya got promoted, or when we bought our first house, or when my mom passed and Priya held me through the grief. They know we exist. They just don't acknowledge it. And Priya. God, she's tried. She calls every week. Sends holiday cards. Flies out with Liam to visit, even though they won't let me come. She tells me she doesn't want to give up hope. That they'll come around. I don't tell her that hope has started to feel like a leash. That brings us to last month. Our 12-year anniversary. We decided to make it big this time, after all the quiet ones, all the takeout dinners and clinking glasses on the couch. We rented a hall. Sent invitations. My sister flew in from Oregon. Priya found a deep red sari she hadn't worn since our wedding. We invited everyone. Including her parents. She knew what the answer would be. But she sent the invite anyway. And on the day of the party, after the champagne was chilled, the fairy lights strung across the ceiling, Liam in his little bow tie, someone knocked at the door of the venue. It wasn't her parents. It was a priest. Sent by them. He brought a tray. Spices, incense, a small brass bell. He said he was instructed to perform a cleansing ritual. To remove negative energy from their daughter's life. From our life. 12 years. And instead of a gift, they sent someone to scrub the shame of me off her existence. I didn't say a word. I just looked at Priya. And in that moment, for the first time in our marriage, I couldn't tell what hurt more, what they did, or the way her shoulders dropped like she'd expected it. The priest didn't stay long. He was soft-spoken, probably hired through a mutual acquaintance. Just doing a job. He placed the tray down with an apologetic smile, like he already knew what this was. Said he'd perform a simple cleansing outside the entrance to the venue, and then be on his way. Said it wouldn't take long. I didn't answer. Priya did. She told him, as politely as she could, that his services weren't needed. That he could keep the incense, the tray, the brass bowl. He bowed once, quietly packed his things, and left without a word. The door clicked shut behind him, and the room didn't quite feel the same after that. The party was still going on. Music in the background. Friends laughing at the bar. Liam dancing awkwardly in his too stiff shoes with his aunt. But we were somewhere else, me and Priya, sitting in the hallway, between the entrance and the celebration. Half in one world, half in another. She didn't cry. Priya's never been the dramatic type. She carries hurt like a stone in her pocket, never throws it, just keeps it there, rubbing at it when no one's looking. But that night, she looked tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with sleep. The kind that settles in your bones when you've been holding up the same hope for too long. I thought maybe, this time, she said. Not to me, not really. Just out loud. I asked her why she still hoped after all these years. She was quiet a moment. Then said something that sat with me, because if I let go of that, I lose the last part of them that still sees me. And that hit me harder than I expected. Because here I was, feeling rejected for 12 years. But her. She'd been the bridge between two worlds, one foot in each, and neither side ever fully claimed her. Not her parents. Not her culture. And maybe, sometimes, not even me. That's not an easy thing to admit. The truth is, I've had my moments too. Quiet ones. When I didn't understand why she still called them every week. Why she went through the motions. Why she brought Liam to people who never asked about him. A few times, I even told her she was wasting her time. But that night, in the hallway, I saw something I hadn't before. This wasn't just about approval. This was about identity. About not wanting to erase where you came from just because it didn't welcome you back. The door opened, and my sister poked her head out. "Cake's ready," she said, smiling. Priya stood up. Smoothed her dress. Took a deep breath. Then she walked back inside. And that's what I'll always remember from that night. Not the priest. Not the ritual. Not the insult dressed as tradition. But my wife, standing up, walking back into a room full of people who loved her, and choosing joy anyway. We cut the cake. People clapped. Someone made a toast. I don't remember what they said, only that Priya squeezed my hand under the table while they spoke. We danced. Liam fell asleep in my arms halfway through "Your Song." The tray from the ritual. I left it outside. Let the night wind scatter the ash. But the feeling, that stayed. Later, lying in bed with her head on my chest, Priya asked a question I didn't expect. "Do you think Liam will hate them for this?" I thought for a long time. Then said, "Not if we raise him to understand that their silence isn't his reflection, it's theirs." She nodded. But I could tell the question wasn't just about Liam. It was about her, too. The day after the party felt like a hangover without the alcohol. The house was still messy, glitter on the kitchen tiles, Liam's crumpled bow tie under the coffee table, a stack of untouched party favors on the counter. My sister flew back to Portland. The house fell quiet again. And with it, the silence that comes when two people know something's changed, but haven't said it out loud yet. We didn't talk about the priest. Not that day. Not the next, either. But a week later, it caught up to us. We were in the middle of folding laundry, mundane things, matching socks and trying to figure out where Liam's dinosaur pajama pants had disappeared to, when I asked her if she'd spoken to her parents since the party. She said yes. Briefly. I asked if she told them how it made her feel. She looked at me, almost irritated. Said it wouldn't matter. That nothing would change. And then I said something I hadn't meant to say, but it came out too fast to stop. Then why do you keep giving them pieces of you they don't want? The air shifted. She dropped the shirt she was folding and turned toward me. What's that supposed to mean? I hesitated. I didn't want to hurt her, but part of me had been carrying that question for years. Watching her bend over backwards for people who refused to see her. Refused to see us. I told her I didn't understand why she kept trying. Why she kept calling. Why she flew out with Liam to spend time in a house where my name couldn't even be spoken. She crossed her arms. Because they're my parents. And I'm your husband, I said. And for 12 years, I've been treated like a stranger to the people who raised you. It wasn't shouting. We don't really yell. But our voices were too sharp for that quiet kitchen. She told me I didn't get it. That she couldn't just cut them off. That even when they hurt her, they were still her family. And that's when I made the mistake. I asked her, what does that make me? She froze. It hung there, raw and heavy. I told her that every time she put herself back into their orbit, no matter how they ignored her, insulted her, diminished her, it felt like I came second. Like our marriage, our son, our life, was always fighting for space in her heart against the people who refused to accept it. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she quietly said, I've never put them above you. And I believe she meant it. But feelings don't always follow facts. I sat down, elbows on my knees, rubbing my face. Maybe not above, I said. But you keep giving them power over how you see yourself. And that means they still get to shape us. Even from a distance. She sat too. Slower. I don't know how to stop hoping, she whispered. I'm scared that if I let go, it means they win. That they get to rewrite me as the daughter who abandoned them. I looked at her then, really looked. And for the first time, I realized she wasn't just hoping they'd change. She was afraid that if she stopped hoping, she'd lose the last thread tying her to who she used to be. The little girl who sat on her mom's lap during Diwali. The teenager who made chai with her dad on Sunday mornings. The daughter they loved, before me. And I finally understood. It wasn't just grief. It was mourning someone still alive. That's a pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. So I reached over, took her hand, and told her something I should have said a long time ago. You don't have to let go all at once. But let's stop letting them decide what kind of love we deserve. She cried then. Softly. The kind of tears you don't sob, you just let them fall. We didn't solve it that night. But we did agree on something. From now on, any door that didn't open for both of us, we'd stop knocking on it. 3 weeks after the anniversary party, Priya's phone lit up with a name she hadn't seen on the screen in years. It was her father. He didn't text. He called. She showed me the screen before answering, like she was asking for permission. I nodded. She stepped outside. I watched her from the window, barefoot, pacing the back porch, one hand in her hair like she was holding herself together by the roots. I didn't ask what he said right away. She came back in quiet, her face unreadable. Then she told me, they wanted to see her. In person. In India. Not both of us. Just her. The excuse was her cousin's wedding, a big one, the kind that turns into a 4-day affair with 1,000 guests and enough food to feed a village. Her father said it would be nice if she came. Her mother, he claimed, was softening. That maybe this would be a step forward. But not you, she said, looking at me. They were very clear about that. There it was again. A half door. A conditional welcome. And the worst part? I saw it, just for a second, in her eyes. Hope. That old familiar flicker. I didn't say anything. I just waited. She asked me what I thought. I told her I didn't want her to go. But I also said that wasn't fair. Because if I stood in her way, I'd be no better than them, deciding who she could love, where she could belong. I asked her only one thing: if you go, don't shrink yourself. She nodded. Said she wouldn't. And so she went. She flew to Mumbai with Liam. I stayed behind, work, responsibilities, and truthfully, I wasn't ready to be in a room full of people who saw me as a stain on their family tree. She texted updates the first couple of days. Small things. A picture of Liam feeding pigeons. A snapshot of a sari she borrowed from her aunt. The wedding venue being decorated with marigold garlands and hanging lights. But on the third day, silence. No texts. No photos. Nothing. I waited. Tried to stay calm. Tried not to picture her sitting at a table while someone made a passive-aggressive comment about how Liam doesn't look Indian, or how American men don't understand our values. Then, late that night, my phone buzzed. It was her. One text. I left early. Flying back tomorrow. Can we talk? My heart sank. Not from worry, but from knowing that something had cracked. Again. She got home just after noon. I met her at the airport. She didn't hug me right away. Just stood there, holding her carry-on like it weighed 100 pounds. And then she said it. I told them I wasn't coming back unless they invited you, too. As my husband. Not as a guest. As family. I asked what they said. She looked away. They told me I'd changed too much. That I wasn't the girl they raised anymore. And that was it. The thing she'd been afraid of for 12 years. Spoken out loud. Not just disapproval. Not just silence. Rejection of her. Not because of me. Not because of Liam. But because she chose her own life, and refused to be ashamed of it. We rode home in silence. That night, after Liam was asleep, she sat on the edge of the bed and stared out the window. I waited so long for them to open the door, she whispered. I didn't realize I was the one holding it open. Then she turned to me. I'm done knocking. I believed her. For the first time, I truly believed her. The days after she came back were quiet, but in a different way than before. Not heavy. Not tense. More like still water after a storm. We didn't talk about her parents much. Not because we were avoiding it, but because there wasn't anything left to say. The silence that followed wasn't full of hope or pain anymore. It was full of acceptance. And that, in its own way, was louder than grief. But acceptance brings its own questions. If the old door is finally closed, what do you build in its place? That was the part we hadn't figured out yet. You see, when you spend 12 years adjusting your life around someone else's absence, reaching, waiting, softening yourself for a seat at their table, you forget how to build your own. And that's where Priya was. Not broken. Not lost. Just new. One night, maybe 2 weeks later, I came home from work and found her in the garage. Not crying. Not zoning out. Just sanding down an old bookshelf. One we'd inherited from my dad. It was scratched up, half forgotten, wedged behind Christmas boxes and Liam's old tricycle. I asked her what she was doing. She looked up, hair in a messy bun, hands covered in dust, and said, I want to rebuild things. Not just the shelf. Not just furniture. Us. Not that we were falling apart, but we'd been in survival mode for so long, tending to the cracks without ever checking the foundation. And now, with no more in-law drama to tiptoe around, no unspoken grief shaping the days, it felt like we had a blank page again. So that became our quiet project. Every weekend, we did something small, together. Repainting the guest room. Finally hanging the wedding photo we'd kept in a drawer for a decade. Starting family dinners on Sundays, just the three of us, no phones, no distractions, just actual connection. We started telling Liam stories, not fairy tales, but real ones. About where we came from. About who we loved. About the mistakes we made and what we learned. And Priya. She started cooking recipes from her childhood again. Not to prove anything. Not to honor anyone who had shut her out. But for her. For us. For Liam. We had paneer and dal on Tuesday nights. She taught me how to make chai properly. We burned the first few attempts, laughed about it, and kept going. Then one day, she said something that caught me off guard. I want to change my last name. Now, for context, Priya had kept her maiden name when we married. Not because of tradition, but because it felt safer. Like keeping a piece of herself untouched, in case the rest of it got pushed away. But now. She said she was tired of keeping parts of herself off limits. That she wanted a name that reflected where she was, not where she used to be. Not for me. Not for show. For her. So we went to the courthouse. Signed the papers. Took Liam out for ice cream after like it was a holiday. And in some way, maybe it was. Because here's the thing about grief, not all of it looks like tears. Sometimes, grief looks like sanding down an old shelf. Like reclaiming a name. Like laughing while the chai boils over. It's not about what was lost. It's about who you become when you stop waiting to be seen, and start living as if you already are. And us? We were finally building a life that wasn't shaped by silence. It was shaped by choice. Year 13. No rented halls this time. No big guest list. No delicate invites sent into silence. Just us. We planned a simple dinner at home, Liam helped set the table. I cooked. She picked the playlist. It was a small thing, but everything about it felt ours. It wasn't about proving anything anymore. It wasn't about making a point to the people who didn't show up. It was about being present with the ones who had. We lit candles. Laughed through dinner. Took turns telling embarrassing stories from our early dates, Liam, wide-eyed, learning that his mom once spilled coffee on me during our first kiss. Stuff like that. And when dessert came, just a humble store-bought cake with too many sprinkles, Priya handed me a small envelope. I opened it, expecting a handwritten note or a photo. But instead, it was a folded sheet of paper with printed text. A message. From her aunt. One of the few relatives who had stayed on the periphery all these years. Never cruel, just distant. The kind who watched from the sidelines, unsure of which side of history to stand on. The note said this. I heard what happened. About the priest. About what was said. I want you to know, I see you. I see your marriage. You've built something strong. I'm sorry it took me this long to say it. But I hope it's not too late to start being the kind of family that shows up. I looked up at Priya. She shrugged, small smile. She sent it last week. I wasn't sure if I wanted to show you. And that's when I realized something important. This wasn't a story about rejection. It was a story about what you choose to open when a door stays closed too long. For years, we knocked. And knocked. And waited. And hurt. But in the end, it wasn't about that door at all. It was about the home we built beside it. Where our son knows the sound of his mother's laughter. Where our photo hangs in the hallway, not hidden away. Where our names sit side by side on the mailbox, and in every story we've chosen to write together. Some people will never come around. That's just truth. But sometimes, one does. And sometimes, that is enough. After Liam went to bed, we stepped outside with our mugs of tea. The porch light buzzed. The evening was warm. We sat on the swing, no words needed. And as I looked at her, the woman I married, the woman who fought for two worlds until she made her own, I thought about what love really is. It's not just showing up. It's staying. Even when no one claps. Even when no one blesses it. Even when it takes 12 years to realize. You never needed the door to open. You just needed to stop waiting outside it.